What is good, everybody? My name is Swervin. I'm 19 years old of age. I'm gonna graduate in June 2nd, class of 2020. And I'm very excited because it's my first YouTube video. And today, I'm gonna be talking about The Green Mile, written by best-selling author Stephen King. As you can see, he's right there. So, this book means so much to me because it's my first book that I ever liked, and it really got me into reading more books. I actually have more in my room. I have to read them. And we're going to be discussing the similarities and the differences of both the book and the movie. And I'm very excited. Another fact about me is that in the future, I want to become a filmmaker. That's been like my dream since I was a little kid. I've always wanted to tell a story. Like, I've always wanted to make a movie. It will be an honor. I will be thrilled to make one. Some facts about the book is that it was released in 1996, and it was actually a broken down serial novel, a total of 6 books. So it was Two Dead Girls, Mouse on the Mile, Coffee's Hands, The Bad Death of Edward Delacroix, Night Journey, and Coffee on the Mile. So 6. And this book also won the Bram Stoker Award for Best Novel, and it was rated one of the top 10 Stephen King novels. So, it's a must read. No excuses. If you're into Stephen King like I am, this should be at the top of your book list. As for the movie, it was released 3 years later in 1999, and it was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, as you can see right there, Academy Awards. And they were Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Supporting Actor, which was Mark Clark Duncan, who played John Coffey. And we also see that another movie star, which was Tom Hanks, who played Paul Edgecombe. And it was directed by the same guy who directed The Shawshank Redemption, which was Frank Darabont. So let's talk about the similarities and the differences about both the book and the movie. So let's start with the similarities. So both of them start with John Coffey being convicted of murder of the Terror twins, which was fabulous. Like, that's how they both start. Also, they include the mouse both in the book and the movie very well. Like, amazing job of it. It gets killed by Percy Wetmore. It does the tricks that's both included in the book and in the movie. Also, they include the part of when William Wharton holds out his hand and reaches out to John Coffey and tells him where he's going. And John Coffey's like, it's a bit freaked out, and it's like, sees a vision. I don't know what he sees. And then he says that he's a bad man. Both book and the movie include that Paul has a urinary infection, which like kills him, and like it's painful. And so Paul is cured by John Coffey using his magical gift, whatever he has. And they also include the conversation with Brutal Paul and Edward Delacroix, talking about where the mouse is gonna go after Delacroix is executed. And Brutal mentions a place called Mouseville, which is a tourist attraction. Another thing that they include is that Melinda Morse, which is Hal Moore's wife, has a brain tumor, which cannot be cured, and that completely changes her. Like, her appearance is the same as it's described in the movie and in the book, and there's nothing that they can do. So Paul decides to take John Coffey to Hal Moore's house and help, which that happens. And John cures Melinda from her brain tumor, and like both in the book and the movie, Hal just breaks down in tears. And also another thing that they included both in the book and the movie is that Melinda told John that she dreamed of him. They found each other in the forest, so I think that was cool to include that quote in the movie. Both in the movie and in the book, Percy's ending is the same. It's just fabulous. Like, God knows he deserved that ending. It was karma, for sure. So, John Coffey gives Percy all of the toxic and poison that's in his mouth to Percy in his mouth. He eventually falls into a trance, so he can walk over to Wild Bill's cell, William the Kid, William Morton, however you want to call him, and then he shoots and kills him. And then after that, he let all the toxic that's in his mouth, all the poison, just spills out into the air. And then after that, the police come, all the guards from the Cold Mountain Penitentiary come, and Percy becomes a vegetable. His brain is limbo. He becomes brain dead for sure. So he spends the rest of his life in a mental asylum, which is called Briar Bridge, which is actually the job that was for Percy to take for better payment, but unfortunately that did not happen at all. As for the differences, the movie is told in chronological order. As for in the book, it's told all over the place. They go in the past, and they go in the present, and they go in the way past where before John Coffey, and then they go back in the present, and then it's all over the place pretty much. In the movie, Paul tells the story of what happened in Cold Mountain to his friend Elaine. As for in the book, he writes it down as a memoir. I was very impressed of how Percy was more evil in the book than in the movie, because in the book, before John Coffey arrives at Cold Mountain, it was Edward Delacroix, and when he first arrived there, Percy just brutally beats the crap out of him for the reason that Edward accidentally touches his leg, and then he just brutally beats the crap out of him. It's at some point that he just starts screaming in agony. He leaves bruises. It starts bleeding, and it's just terrible. Yes, in the movie he breaks his knuckles, which was not mentioned at the book at all. Yes, he kills the mouse, Mr. Jangles, or Steamboat Willie. Yes, he sabotages his execution, but in the book it's so much more than that. The character of Percy comes very alive in the book than in the movie. As you can see, it says here, "Let me at him! Let me at him!" Percy cried, lunging forward. He began to hit at Delacroix's shoulders with his baton. Delacroix held his arms up, screaming, and the stick went whap, whap, whap against the sleeve of his blue prison shirt. I saw him that night with his shirt off, and that boy had bruises from Christmas to Easter. It also says here, "Fucking faggot, I'll teach you to keep your hands off me, you lousy bum puncher." Whap, whap, whap. And now Delacroix was bleeding from one ear and screaming. Another difference is that in the book, it was set in the year 1932, and in the movie, it was set in 1935. And Opal is 104 in the book, and in the movie, he's 108. And another thing that the movie completely left out, which I was really upset is that a guy named Brad Dolan was bullying Paul. He threatened him. He told him where he was going all the time. Like, he just did not like him at all. And Brad reminds Paul of Percy Wetmore. In the book, the death of Edouard Delacroix is much, but much more detailed than in the movie. Like, in the book, it's so gruesome and it's horrific. If you ever read Stephen King, you know that he's a horror author. They go into details of he moved this way, he moved that way. As for in the movie, we see that he did not go well with his execution, but in the movie, so much more than that. Also, Hal Morris had an assistant called Curtis Anderson, which was present in the book on the execution of Edouard Delacroix. As for in the movie, Hal Morris was present for the bad execution of Edouard Delacroix. So one major difference in the book and in the movie is how they find out about the real murder of the Deterick twins. So in the book, Paul finds out that William Morton was the real murderer by doing a little bit of research on him, using his logic. He searches his background, etc. Like, what crimes did he commit? And he consults it with Sheriff McGee, and then he tells him that it's no use. He made a mistake in putting the wrong guy in prison. Then after that, Paul, Brutus, and Jane, which was Paul's wife, they have a discussion, and Jan is desperate and finding out a solution to save John. And then Brutus and Paul tell her that it's no use, like, the execution is gonna be done. Then Jan tells him that he's a coward, that he's just gonna let him die. Then after that, she apologizes to him and says, go talk to him, tell him what do you want. In the movie, Paul goes to John's cell, and John tells him that both of them are bad men, which is William Morton and Percy. And he says, why Bill? Paul. And then after that, John reaches out his hand out of the cell, and then he tells Paul to take his hand and he'll see for himself. So that's what he does. And John tells Paul that he has to give a bit of his power for him to visualize what happened, like the truth. And so that's what happens. And Paul visualizes the truth of William Morton being the actual killer of the Deterick twins. And it's just insane. Like, it's insane. They left out on how Paul's friends died, which includes Brutus Howell, Dean Satan, Harry Telwiger, Melinda Morris, and Hal Morris. So Brutus Howell died of a heart attack 5 years later after the execution of John Coffey. As for Dean, he died of an assassination caused by an inmate in C Block 5 months later. As for Harry, he died of cancer sometime later in his life. For Melinda, she died of a heart attack 10 years later, and actually lived longer than Hal, his husband. As for Jan, she died in 1956 while going with Paul to their grandchild's graduation in a bus accident. Then Paul was just devastated at that moment. And then after that, he saw John Coffey in the shadows and then begged him to tell him why he saved Melinda Morris, but not Jan, his wife. And then after that, John Coffey just disappeared. Thank you guys for watching my video. For those of you who liked it, I would really appreciate it if you would take your time to like, comment, subscribe below. Be sure to follow me on my social media, which is Instagram, Snapchat, I would also really appreciate it if you shared this with your friends, family, whoever. And well, that's it. See ya.